This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
The weekly wrap is the week in news. I'm Claire Kimball.
And I'm Larissa Moore.
So good to have you here, Larissa. I've had lots of squizzes tell me that they've been really excited to hear your voice again and to have you back.
Loving it.
We're starting today with the federal coalition's woes. It really sucks to be Sussan Ley at the moment.
That's one way to put it. We'll get into that. We'll also explain a bit about the platforms being added to the social media ban this week and get you across Zoran Mamdani's mayoral victory in New York City.
And for my recommendations, it's a microwave cake that Nikki's going to make for us while we record. Let's get into it.
Am I now?
So, Nikki, to get us started, I think we need a little bit of lead time and a bit of a briefing on this. The recipe is in our notes here, so you can dive on in just to sort of front-end load my recommendation for the week. It's a Nutella microwave cake. I've been very sceptical about these. I made it last night. I saw it and pinned it. It's incredible.
It works.
I've got the ingredients here for you. So I reckon it's literally 5 minutes.
I think I can handle it.
This bit will take us about 15 minutes to record, I reckon. So if you're ready in about 15 minutes' time.
Perfect.
That'd be
I'll have
delightful.
a little bit of dessert to spice things up.
Thank you so much.
I do like a mid-podcast snack, so thank you, Nikki.
Exactly. We're going to move on to the biggest story of the week, and it's the ongoing issues for the federal coalition and Sussan Ley's leadership. We haven't talked about pure politics for quite a while.
I know. It's good to dip back in every now and then, and there has been a lot going on. Some people think it's really inside the bubble, but when there's this much talk and stuff going on, it's good for us to take a look at it. All too familiar theme behind this conversation, and that is the coalition parties' struggle to land on a policy on climate change. It's been an issue for years and years. In this iteration, it's about the commitment for Australia to get to net zero emissions by 2050.
It's a policy that's not just coalition policy, it's actually Australia's target. It was set as Australia's target when Scott Morrison was Prime Minister back in 2021. He and they, the Liberals and the Nats at that point in time, thought that it was the way to go to head off any criticism as they were heading to a big, important COP meeting, so that big United Nations gathering every year. And the rest of the world were about to commit to net zero emissions by 2050. Also, we were heading into an election cycle. So that was behind that decision then.
I do remember talking about that a lot at the time about whether we would sign up to it, and we did. When you say the world was signing up to that target, it's the world except for China and the US, and they are the biggest emitters. And look, that's a bit of the crunch point of the issues here with the coalition. This is what the coalition MPs keep bringing up in these conversations. Why are we, if the biggest emitters aren't signing up to this target?
Yeah, it's very easy to get into that conversation very quickly when it comes to the rest of the world. It's very fraught. Those who are pro-abandoning the target say that Australia contributes just 1% of global emissions. Of course, the people who pick up that argument on the other side say, yes, but we also have all of these fossil fuels that we send off into the world, and that's something that we need to take responsibility for as well. Driving down emissions, though, so quickly, the coalition MPs who are really looking at this policy and looking at overturning it say that our drive to lower emissions, it's contributing to rising energy costs, inflation, business closures. And that's where the week started. The Nationals officially abandoned that target for net zero.
Yep, they've ditched it. Nationals leader David Littleproud says that doesn't mean they don't believe in reducing emissions. What they're proposing is that Australia should peg its emission reduction efforts to the OECD average. So that's where other developed nations sit.
Yeah, by that score, when you look at that lens, Australia has already reduced emissions by double the OECD average rate since 2015. The Nats say that that's too aggressive, that farmers and businesses and households have essentially paid a very unreasonable price, including via higher power costs. That's the real rub point. One of the many questions now, though, is what is the Liberal Party going to do?
Oh, and many, many eyes on it. Does Sussan Ley follow suit? doing so could alienate moderate Liberal voters, particularly in urban seats, or does she risk a formal split of the coalition? Some big questions.
Yeah, it wasn't a good way to start a parliamentary sitting week when the Nats
Especially
confirmed.
the last one of the year.
Yeah, not second last.
Oh, second one.
One more to go.
One more to go. But
there's still a lot more theatre to play out.
So much to come.
At the end of November. Yeah, exactly. Of course, when Parliament sits, all of the politicians, a lot of the journalists covering this are in the one spot. So it's very easy to cover, and you get some of those awkward scenes of chasing people down corridors trying to get answers. After the May election, of course, and after the defeat of Peter Dutton and Ley's election as the leader, the Liberal Party policy has been under review. It's been 6 months now since the Liberals had a firm position on this, and many other policies, of course, as well. But it makes it very difficult to deal with it when it's in such a spotlight.
Yeah, it does. And the Albanese government is taking full advantage of that. They keep this issue of net zero bubbling up. Now, Barnaby Joyce, the former Nats leader who said he's quitting his seat, there's also speculation that he'll leave the Nats entirely over climate policy. He put a bill into Parliament to abandon the net zero target.
Yeah, he did. And because the government controls the numbers in the House of Reps, they control the parliamentary agenda, what bills come up for debate and for how long are they debated. And a mate of mine who works in Parliament says it's Team Albo who has handled this in such a way the debate gets kept putting on the notice paper. They keep starting the debates on it, and then they never give it time to actually get voted on. So it means that it keeps coming up over and over and over again, particularly this bit of rub between the coalition parties.
And of course, these debate speeches get picked up by the media, and then there's this general agitation around Sussan Ley and the question of her leadership. Before we move off net zero, there are plenty of other issues of Ley's leadership that she's facing. There are a few meetings to know about, and we're just going to get you across those.
Yeah, so this seems to be coming to a real point for the coalition, but for the Liberals particularly. So Liberal MPs have been ordered back to Parliament next week. So Wednesday, they're going to discuss energy and emissions reduction policy. Then Liberal frontbenchers will meet on Thursday to formalise their position off the back of that meeting. And then 3 senior Nats are going to meet to try and harmonise the coalition's policy. And then there will be a final joint coalition meeting that's slated for Sunday next week, so the 16th of November, to finally endorse a united policy. That is the plan.
That's the plan to get a plan. I hope they have good snacks for these meetings so that they can get things done harmoniously. So that is going to set the tempo for a lot of next week. So lots to keep your eye on there. But another thing on that is COP30 is on now. So that's the big UN climate change summit that's happening in Brazil. I know we've talked about it a lot in the Squiz Today podcast, and we are actually going to talk about it a bit more tomorrow in our What's Coming Up podcast.
Yeah, we'll pick up that angle because not just here in Australia but globally, climate policy is going to be quite a talking point in the week to come. That's a bit of sizzle for you about what's coming up.
Love a bit of sizzle on international summits.
So that's the climate bit of Ley's woes. There is a couple of other things to mention. One is a dinner that a couple of her colleagues had this week.
Canberra, politics and dinners.
Exactly. Angus Taylor, Andrew Hastie, they're both considered leadership rivals and rivals to Sussan Ley as well. They were spotted having dinner with a group of other Conservative Liberal MPs at a Thai restaurant. Chong & Co, it's called. It's a Thai restaurant on the Kingston foreshore. That, of course, is one of the lovely precincts in Canberra and very close to Parliament House. It's a location that's quite notable in political circles because it's also above, or rather below, the penthouse that Malcolm Turnbull had. And it's sort of the location where he met his allies when they were thinking about rolling Tony Abbott back in the day.
We have both spent time in Canberra, so we know that that area can be a real scene to politics.
It sure can.
And leadership movements.
Yep, lots of intrigue. Who's having dinner with who?
That's the word.
Even in our days as a staffer, you'd go to these places for dinner as well, and there was always who's over there? And, oh, that's interesting. Spotting those blokes, though, this week led to lots of questions about what they might be plotting. Taylor said, nothing to see here. I talk to my colleagues all the time about lots of issues. On climate, he said, I think she's, as in Ley, she's going to continue to get through this issue and take us to the next election. That's what she's seeking to do, and I support her as the leader.
He added that he can't resist a green curry. Look, I get it. I make Nagi's green curry recipe all the time.
Delicious.
But
Yep.
still, gosh, we've heard phrases like that a lot, haven't we?
Full support.
Full support. I stand with my leader. Taylor's on the front bench, but Andrew Hastie, he quit a few weeks ago, and that's a lingering talking point.
Yeah, what's his plan?
Yeah.
Because he's not the sort of politician who will be happy with a backbench career representing his electorate. He's destined for bigger things, many people think. So whatever it is, it's not with Ley as leader.
And look, if you look at the devastating news poll this week, it's only natural that speculation grows, as it does with news poll. On the two-party preferred metric, Labor has a commanding 57% to 43% lead over the coalition. That's unchanged. It's the primary vote that's the issue.
The coalition's primary vote in news poll this week slumped to a record low of 24%. It's the worst primary vote for the coalition in the 40-year history of news poll. Ley's personal net approval rating, so how many people think she's doing a great job, how many people are dissatisfied, it's minus 33%. Only 25% of respondents to that poll are satisfied with her performance, 58% are dissatisfied.
On that primary vote, the coalition's was 31.8% at the election in May. So as we said, it's now slumped to 24%. That election, of course, saw Labor win by a huge majority. So you can guess what 24% does to their...
Just decimated.
Yeah. The other thing to note in that poll is One Nation's resurgence.
Yeah, so Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party saw its primary vote go to a record high of 15%. Again, in the polls, they come and go, take them with a grain of salt, all of that. But it's a really interesting indication at the moment of what might be happening with Australian sentiment around particularly the right and conservative end of politics. There's this idea that One Nation could own more and more of the conservative vote, and they're having some fun with it as well. There was a story this week saying essentially that they've doubled their party membership since the election in May.
From what to what? We don't know, but a doubling, they say. And look, we're also entering what's known as silly season in Parliament. Silly season everywhere, but silly season in politics. It's the end of the year. Journos are starting to not pay attention. Australians are starting to not pay attention. So it's that kind of time of the year you're like, well, who knows what could happen?
Who knows? It's all ahead of us. Sticking with domestic politics for a sec, we wanted to touch base on the new social media laws that are coming out. They're coming into effect in December. That's the social media ban for the under-16s.
Yeah, so it's not too far away. They're due to come into effect on December 10th. The laws require some social media companies to prevent children from under the age of 16 from holding an account on their platform. The key point here is that it will be the responsibility of the tech companies to uphold this ban, not on parents and not on the government. There's still a lot of movement that's happening. So the update this week is that Reddit and Kik will be added to the list of banned sites. So they're joining Facebook, if any of the youth are on Facebook, but Instagram for sure, Snapchat, that's a huge one, X, Twitter and YouTube. But yeah, Reddit and Kik joining those sites.
Larissa, I was one of those people who's like, Reddit, I'm kind of getting my head around more and more. I actually turn to Reddit quite a bit these days.
Yeah.
Very interested. It's kind of like going to the comments section of Instagram. You kind of want to see what people are saying about something.
Yeah.
It's an online forum, essentially, communities sort of form. There's a podcasting community and many podcasting communities. In fact, if you like Robert Irwin, you can go to the subreddit Robert Irwin fans. It's quite a thing at the moment.
That's your thing, no judgment.
Kik, though, is like no awareness of Kik.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of Kik before either. It's a live streaming platform. If you've heard of Twitch, it's kind of similar to that. Users can live stream themselves doing pretty much anything. Gaming is a big part of that platform.
Which is what Twitch is based on,
Twitch is based on, yeah. But basically you can set yourself up, users live stream all kinds of things and people watch them do it.
It's kind of the goggle box phenomenon, isn't it? Watching people do a thing rather than do the thing yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
It does have an Australian connection. It was launched and funded by two Australian billionaires, Ed Craven and Bijan Tarani. They made their fortune in a cryptocurrency casino called Stake.com and they've sunk a fair bit of money into Kik.
Kik's big selling point is that it was launched to compete with Twitch and the proposition is there's lower moderation, so more free-for-all about the sort of content and the sort of things that you can do on the platform, lower sign-up fees as well. That loose moderation also made the platform a bit of a target and a headline, I guess. August this year, a French live streamer who was known for taking on really sort of violent and humiliating challenges on camera, he died during one of his live streams on Kick.
And like this actually unfolded on camera and people were watching it.
Pretty grim.
Pretty grim. The French government said it would sue Kick over that incident. There hasn't been much on that in the news that recently, but the platform is controversial. So that's just an example of why it's more controversial and why it's probably been added to this ban here in Australia.
Yeah. To come back to that implementation point about our social media ban and the platforms figuring out what they're going to do to actually put that age verification into place, one thing that's been ruled out is the government, the federal government, essentially having some sort of platform across it that will do that age check, a government-run digital ID. It's not going to be the only mandatory method of age verification.
No, it can't be the sole mandatory method. They have to, the platforms have to come up with other ways. So things that have been brought up that could do this, facial recognition, so using AI to check if the features are of someone under 16 and then no. Other possibilities are apparently analysing usage patterns or search terms or queries to see if it's young person doing that.
As in the sort of content or the sort of creators that they're following might give away your age. Yeah, right.
Third-party age checks, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. What is known is that the fines are really big for non-compliance.
Yeah, non-compliance up to $49.5 million. So by December 10, they'll need to have some sort of method in place that does this, or deactivate and remove themselves and remove accounts for the under 16s. Some big conversations happening around dinner tables of families with if they're sitting down at the dinner table, of course.
They do that, yep.
With young teens, of course.
Yeah, I think it's that thing like it's coming up soon and in a month they're not going to have Snapchat. Yeah. Technically they're not going to have these apps and they'll just be deactivated.
How's that going to work?
Get your conversation topics prepped.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe dive into the Squiz.
Yeah, correct.
You can bring all the talking points to the table. Over to the US now. Jody and I flagged the New York City mayoral election was going to be a big one in the news. It really was.
And you couldn't move on Wednesday or Thursday for it dominating the news. Essentially, a 34-year-old Democratic Socialist named Zoran Mamdani has been elected mayor. Before we get into that, we probably should explain a little what a New York City mayor does, because it's a bit different to mayors here and it's just a big deal, which is part of why this is making news everywhere.
Yeah, and actually shout out to our very own Kate Watson, who at 9:30 last night was like, can you just explain to me what a mayor does in the US? Because I know it's really, really different. So here we go. In New York, the mayor basically runs it like a premier runs a state here. They control a massive, massive budget. 175 billion Australian dollars is the New York City budget. They oversee everything from police. Of course, you have all the NYPD shows, fire services, schools, public transport, housing, essentially what you would think as a state or territory responsibility here. It's a really powerful, this New York City mayor position as well, being one of the biggest cities in the world, let alone in the United States, and a lot of powerful people who live in New York City, a very powerful political position in America.
Yeah, and this young Mamdani, he's 34 years old. He is now in this position. He won with about 50% of the votes for the Democrats on Tuesday. We're going to run through a couple of things that make this notable. As I said, he's 34, so he's the youngest mayor New York's had in more than a century. He's also the city's first Muslim mayor. He was actually born in Uganda before moving to the US as a kid. Then there's the socialist part. So socialist democratic socialist, socialist democratic
socialist. Yeah. So far left of the political spectrum. Of course, Donald Trump, the president, has made lots of comments this week about being a communist, and a lot of that sort of end of politics, essentially calling him a communist. What Mamdani is promising to do is to introduce free buses, rent freezes, free childcare. Even an idea that the government might open its own government grocery stores to try and combat the cost of living crisis. To pay for all of this, he wants to raise taxes on the wealthiest people in New York.
Which, as we say, is interesting because New York has the world's highest concentration of millionaires and billionaires. At least he wouldn't lack people to tax.
Yeah.
The other notable bit is who he beat, Andrew Cuomo. He ran as an independent. Now, he was a former Democratic New York governor. He had massive financial backing from billionaires, and he was expected to be the frontrunner in this campaign.
Was expected to be the front runner, but it just didn't happen. Mamdani really commanded this sort of grassroots campaign that was very social media led and almost entirely focused on the cost of living. I found that really interesting, I guess, just in the context of our federal election and a lot of commentary about the Liberals particularly could have done better if they'd really focused on cost of living. And, of course, you can have that conversation about whether they did that or not. We won't go into that. But you can dive onto any of the social platforms and see exactly how he prosecuted that campaign. His supporters talked about not being able to afford rent, really focusing on younger New York residents, spending 80% of their income just on housing. That was a fairly common refrain in the campaign. His campaign mobilised thousands of supporters to go out and campaign for him. They knocked literally on $1 million doors.
So when you say grassroots campaign, it literally was such an effective grassroots campaign. He stayed on message. I heard that something like usually these mayoral races get like 1 million votes, and there was something like 700,000 pre-votes. So
they were activated.
And voting early. President Donald Trump, who's from New York City himself, he's really threatening to cut federal funding to the city if Mamdani implements his communist policies, his word. During his victory speech, Mamdani called Trump out directly, saying, "I know you're watching, turn the volume up."
Yeah, if you want to see some of the commentary around out of it saying Mamdani has taken on Trump with just 4 words, turn the volume up.
Yeah.
No need to label what the Republicans think about Mamdani, of course, not just the MAGA Republicans, so the really hardcore Trump supporters, but the party more broadly. Also fascinating for what the Democrats nationally think as well, because the analysts, the experts, the commentators, they all say that, yes, there's a time and a place for Democrats like Mamdani to the far left of the party that really embrace these very sort of progressive policies. But there are plenty of less liberal places in America that the Democrats need to appeal to, and those sort of policies just won't fly.
And to draw a little quick comparison with politics back home, with Sussan Ley and the Liberals, a huge election loss like the Democrats had when Kamala Harris lost to Trump, a party has to find themselves again. So these kinds of questions.
Who are we? What do we stand for?
What are our policies?
Yeah.
Let's get the biscuits and get in a room and sort it out.
You keep focusing on the snacks. The snacks are a real thing for you in this process.
It really helps you get through a meeting, especially if things are tough.
I'll just note that for next time.
Exactly.
Mamdani takes office on the 1st of January. The final story we're going to move on to this week is an essay from Prince Harry.
Letter? Think piece? Was it an essay?
It's Look, you can judge yourself. We'll put the link in the episode notes and you can dive in and work out what genre of writing
essay is probably safest.
Think piece might be a bit too much. That's my 2 cents worth. It's been called a love letter to Britain. It's called, and it has its own title, The Bond, the Banter, the Bravery, What It Means to be British. He wrote it to commemorate Remembrance Day, which of course is the 11th of November, 11th of the 11th, so that's next Tuesday.
Yeah, in it he's written about how it's the banter in pubs and on the sporting grounds, the self-deprecation and humour that defines British culture. And he says, ridiculous as it sounds, these are the things that make us British. I make no apology for it. I love it.
Harry's been living in Montecito, though, for the last 5 years.
There's much pub banter in Montecito?
Well, I don't know that there was much pub banter in Harry's former life in the UK. But anyway, clearly he feels like he's got a good grip on that. He does say, though, he is currently living in the United States. Britain will always be the country that he proudly served and fought for. A lot of people are reading a lot into that word currently.
And that military service is an important context here at Remembrance Time. Harry spent 10 years in the British Army. He did 2 tours of Afghanistan. He was an Apache helicopter pilot firing on Taliban positions. He's described his military service as the happiest times in my life.
I don't know how I'd feel if I was Meghan about that, but he does that quite often, talking about that period of his life. The added context here, of course, is when he and Meghan stepped down in 2020 from being senior royals, he lost his honorary military titles. The one that he really held very dear was Captain General of the Royal Marines. They're all gone. So when it comes around to this time of year, remembrance is a huge thing in the UK, particularly. It all bubbles back up to the surface, the commentators say, for Harry. Royal insiders say that losing those military titles was a real blow for him personally.
Yeah, he reportedly told senior military figures that he felt like he was letting people down, but he had no choice. The salt in the wound this year is that his dad gave William the title of Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps. Now, that includes the squadron that Harry served with in Afghanistan.
That's got to hurt. So when it comes to remembrance this year, he's doing that from Canada, the reports say. He's visiting military veterans. Meanwhile, he can't wear his military uniform at any of those sort of events anymore, except when the King allows it. Of course, that happened when the Queen died.
Yeah, he wore it at the Queen's funeral vigil. Bit of a theme of difficult relationships between royal brothers at the moment.
Yeah, really is. King
Charles and Prince Andrew. Yep.
Yeah. As for this time of year, Remembrance Day, Harry's essay also mentions that remembrance isn't just about the fallen. It's for those who carry the weight of war in body and mind.
Yeah, and of course we know that he runs the Invictus Games for injured service personnel, so it's something that's clearly important to him.
Exactly right.
On a lighter note, though, when he was asked recently what's the most American thing he does now, he's been in Montecito for 5 years. He said surfing, but he draws the line at drinking Coors Light or wearing shorts to a restaurant. Okay.
Old habits die hard, I guess.
Just some pressed slacks. Is that what you wear to a restaurant?
Pressed slacks, I'm sure. But that writing lovingly about British, and I guess, you know, you feel like a real outsider in a new country. He's, of course, reflecting on that Britishness, but doing it from thousands and thousands of miles away.
Yep.
It's got to sting a little bit. So
my small violin. we'll put a link to that essay in your episode notes.
All right, it is Squiz Recommends time and time to unveil the microwave cake. How did you go, Nikki?
I think I did pretty okay. It has deflated slightly, but I've got 2 forks for you.
I love the mug with my name on it.
I was going to say, yes, if
I'm
you're
not
watching
so
on
narcissistic
Spotify
that I haven't.
Or on YouTube.
I have a mug with my own name. A friend who I think doesn't like me very much gave it to me as a gift, so it's come into the office.
Absolutely fabulous, Claire. Limited edition, 100% original.
Oh, God.
No better place to eat a Nutella microwave cake.
Okay.
Ooh. I mean, it smells really good.
Give it a try.
Oh, this is like actual cake consistency. 3 ingredients.
Yeah. So the New York Times, went usually not for giving away people's things behind paywalls, but that's the recipe. It's a quarter of a cup of Nutella, 1 egg, quarter teaspoon of baking powder in the microwave for a minute. Done.
Look, if you're a parent whose kids are about to get kicked off social media and you're looking for something to do, I think this would go down really well.
That's my recommendation for the week.
Nice.
Thanks, Nikki.
Gosh, a bit of live TV. Thanks, Nikki. My recommendation is for a pair of gardening gloves.
Aren't we domesticated this weekend?
I know. And your sewing machine from a couple of weeks ago.
I bought a sewing machine, exactly.
The house where I live now has roses and they're very beautiful. I didn't plant them. They're very established and they've just bloomed. And I like to go out there after dinner with my little secateurs and pick the roses. But, yeah, these gloves, they're from a business called Lesac and the gloves actually come down to your elbows. So no spiders, no scratches up your arms.
You've got a real thing for the scratches and the spiders.
Yeah. I don't love being out in nature that much, I have to say. So anything that makes it a bit easier. But it's also it's a country business run by a mother and daughter-in-law, and they have these gorgeous gardening supplies. So can strongly recommend these gloves if you're in your gardening era. We'll pop a link to it in the episode notes.
We're heading into gifting season.
Correct.
So I reckon I actually gave the mother of a very good friend some garden gloves last year and they were an absolute hit, but they sound amazing.
Well, and they also do these
the extra coverage.
Beautiful hats.
Okay.
And some very, very fancy secateurs. So, yes, if you're looking for a good gift recommendation for someone who likes to
that's a good one.
Get in the garden,
we'll put the link to both of those in the episode notes. Moving on to Squiz Press with a bit of news. We just wanted to borrow a leaf from Andrew's playbook this week, actually, and put a call out for reviews.
Yes.
For the weekly wrap and for the What's Coming Up podcast.
Now, Andrew is, of course, the host of our Squiz Today podcast. Every Friday, he does a call out for reviews and then reads some of them out on air. And he reads the reviewers' names, which I often find quite funny because
quite funny, yeah.
Some of them are a bit odd.
Cat Jack 968.
It's the numbers, 9687123. But if you have time and you are enjoying the weekly wrap or What's Coming Up podcast, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. You could give us 5 stars, like I'm just saying, and you could leave us a nice little comment.
You could absolutely do that if that's what you wanted to do.
But it helps us to grow because people look at reviews and they, get a bit of a sanity check on it. So, but also any comments that come through on Spotify, we have really been enjoying reading those. So hello to anyone that leaves us a comment there.
Yep. And look, if you want, if you've got something that you want to tell us that's not so flattering, you can email us directly. hello@thesquiz.com.au.
And that is how we like it.
Larissa, thank you for that. We will talk again tomorrow on What's Coming Up. We'll leave it there.
Catch you then.
See ya.